This is TWiT.
We knew this was coming, right? We had heard about this in advance. I thought we'd just kind of rip the Band-Aid off and get rid of this one right up top, but Microsoft has started implementing the layoffs we've been talking about for a while. I will tell you, they're maybe predictably a little touchy about this because we had written what we wrote and they actually contacted us and they were like, where did you hear this? Where did you hear this? They wanted to talk about sources and some of the claims we had made. And it was like, okay, so some of this we can't actually tell you. But anywho, through our own sources, through third parties like the Seattle Times, Bloomberg, Windows Central, et cetera, the story that is emerging is that approximately 9,000 employees are being laid off. Many of them, Microsoft says not most of them, but I have at least one source who has said it is, in fact, over 50% of them, but whatever, are from Xbox/Microsoft Gaming. This is about 4% of the workforce, and this compares to...
That's a lot of people. Holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, it was especially on top of 6,000 that were laid off in May, and then what was the earlier one, February or March or whenever, early in the year?
This from a company that has historic profits.
Yeah, the highest market cap in the world.
Yeah, we're gonna address that in a sense because one of the things that leaked that I didn't get personally, but has been published in many places, was a letter from Phil Spencer to the team. Phil Spencer being head of Xbox, kind of explaining it. This is I don't want to, not masterclass, but this was almost like written by, if AI was the legal department, this is the summary they would have written. And it's very careful not to be specific in places where people like me and you guys would be looking for some hint about the future and what this says about their strategy. And there is nothing there of that note. But he does sort of address kind of up front the juxtaposition, I guess, of the most successful company on earth. And then this business, which thanks to Activision Blizzard now has more people playing games, more hours spent gaming, et cetera, than ever before. Okay, but why, and he really, I don't want to say punts it, but he kind of pushes it out to the broader corporate strategy, right? Based on tough decisions we made previously, make choices now for continued success in future years. Key part of that is discipline, prioritizing the strongest opportunities. If this sounds familiar, it's because what Microsoft says generally about layoffs in this, especially in this AI era. And this isn't in the notes anywhere, but there was a recent internal communication that was like, you are using AI. So if you're not, leave. And if you think you're going to work here, know how to use AI, because everyone is using AI here. And one of the things they're very careful not to say is that these layoffs have anything to do with AI. But I don't know. Maybe.
So what do they... Or is it just right sizing? I mean, what are we doing
so
here?
If you were to I used to say this about like a Satya Nadella speech, right, when he first became CEO. Like if you put this in a Word and like use the summary thing, it would come up with a blank document, because honestly, it doesn't really say anything of import. Like in other words, it doesn't say, like, for example, one of the challenges we've had in Xbox is selling hardware. So we're really going to back off from that and go at this from a game publisher perspective, which, by the way, is absolutely what they're doing. But they can't say that, right? They can't say that for so many reasons. But the big one is it would probably submarine the entire, business if they did that, because a big chunk of the user base is still very much wrapped up in, the Xbox hardware, the consoles and things like that. So I think they're trying to ease into it. So, the Xbox Alley thing, and then Microsoft will or will not make one too. And then myself and others have supposed or, guessed or educated guessed, whatever, that they are going to do third-party hardware, Windows, basically for consoles. And then that will let them kind of back out of it gracefully, right? They're not abandoning that market. In fact, if anything, we're expanding that market. This you can kind of see the marketing that's going to occur there. But man, you read this and it's like, it doesn't say anything. The success we're currently seeing, meaning in Xbox or Microsoft Gaming, is based on tough decisions we've made previously. Now, parsing that, I would say
You mean buying Activision Blizzard?
Yeah, the success that Xbox is seeing, meaning games, like actual games, and also that meaning on other platforms, was the result of Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard, right? The success Xbox is not seeing is not addressed here, right? And that's hardware sales. Or that's like they literally don't. He doesn't really say that. I mean, the word hardware is in here.
Are most of the people hardware people that they're letting go?
Well, we don't know anything about that yet. No, it looks like this is pretty broad, honestly. So, sort of tied to this. This is way later in the notes, but there's a game studio. It's called The Initiative, and they were making a reboot of Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark was OG Xbox, and I think Perfect Dark Zero, I believe, debuted with the Xbox 360. So they were going to go back and redo this thing. They've actually shut down that studio, and they've canceled that reboot.
Huh.
And yeah, I don't know. So, and there's a whole, and they also made some, or were making something called Everwild, which I think was like an open world kind of a game. But yeah, so it's not just hardware, right? This is more kind of broad gaming industry layoffs or whatever. Even Raven, right, which makes some of the Call of Duty games or parts of some of the Call of Duty games is experiencing layoffs, right? So it's likely in the next few days, weeks, whatever, we're going to learn about maybe more studios either contracting or disappearing, even games that we were expecting not happening. It's still kind of fog of war. Like this is just, happening. Like as we started writing about this today, we were getting more information in, as the day went on. So I guess we'll see. But yeah, the Phil Spencer email, or I guess it's an email, is interesting to me only in that it really doesn't say anything. Prioritizing our opportunities, yes.
But this is legal putting.
That's what I mean.
Mouth,
Someone,
right?
yeah. So right. Someone had commented like, "I really like this guy, but man, this is so mealy mouthed. This is blah blah blah." And I'm like, yeah, I don't know that he had a choice. I look, whatever anyone thinks of Phil Spencer, he is a plain spoken everyman. He's not he doesn't make stuff up. He doesn't talk. He's not a marketing idiot. He's a real human being. This doesn't read like something he would say. It's just, I think he had to do this, right? What else could you do? So,
well, at this particular moment, everybody's, you really get the sense that they're very worried about a legal labor lashback.
Yep.
In this 9,000 are a lot of foreign workers, which were really part of the May ones, and it's taken this long to get it through, just because it's harder to lay off in anywhere other than the U.S. The U.S. is a at will workspace. Everyone else has more rights than that, so it's just taken time to process those things. But
yeah, I mean,
we're still seeing the numbers coming in.
Yeah, there are little things that kind of address this. It's interesting you say this because employees that are being let go are encouraged to explore open positions elsewhere inside Microsoft Gaming where their applications will be given priority review. Not language I've seen before, right? And it seems designed to you're probably getting ready to get a class action going, but hold on a second. This is a business decision, whatever. I don't know. He talks, it's bizarre. He talks about opportunities. He talks about momentum. He talks about success. And it's like, guys, look, let's say 50% is correct. Let's say it's less than, let's say it's only, 40% or whatever, 45%. You're laying off several thousand people.
Yeah.
It's, we will someday know what happened this year or this couple of years, but right now,
yeah, right now it doesn't make sense. Right now their market cap is $3.7 trillion.
Yep.
They've had record quarter after record quarter.
3.7? It's already up that high?
Yeah.
Holy camole.
Yeah. And
so what is it for the year? 25,000 people? Something like that?
20?
It's at least, it's probably close to 20. I don't have
18 to 20, something like that.
Yeah,
it was 2,500 in January, but those were performance layoffs.
Yep. Another 6 and 9 is 15 to 20. So that's 17.5. So it's probably somewhere close to that.
The number 2 market cap company, Apple, has laid off Nobody really.
Yeah. So this is a thing with Apple. I mean, they when we came out of the pandemic and big tech started laying off, Apple was like, yeah, we don't really try to. They did do a hand, small amounts of layoffs at some point eventually, but they act or operate a lot like a startup. They have small teams working on things. They're isolated from each other. They may, I don't know how many people they employ. Microsoft is, hundreds of, what is it now? 250,000, somewhere in there. It's a pretty big number, whatever it is. Apple has always run itself more leanly, if that makes sense. I mean, but I also feel like given all of the push with AI, given that I almost said invested, you spent $68 billion on Activision. You're going cross-platform. I mean, it seems like this is the time to spend. Like this is when you actually, let's plow this success that we're seeing and this momentum as opportunity, momentum, success, right? And actually invest in the business. This is like a holding pattern kind of an approach. It's actually worse. It's a scaling back. I don't know. It doesn't make sense.
The spin on this is that the company culture is not changing fast enough towards the focus on AI. And so they just keep smashing away at the company culture. Like that will make it better.
We're just going to hit this point though, where maybe you're some low-level programmer working on Microsoft Word, or you're in a game studio working on some open world game, or it doesn't matter where you are. And you're like, look, they come down and say, look, you said you were going to do this thing. It's not done yet. What's going on? And you're like, yeah, it turns out it's a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. It's going to take some more time. They're like, just AI it. It's like, yeah, but it's not, I think we're actually getting to the point where AI is just the answer now to everything, and again, they're being very careful not to say that. They very much don't want the messaging on this to be Microsoft lays off several thousand people because AI, right? But they're also at this moment requiring everyone to use AI to make themselves more efficient. And one of the ways you can be more efficient is to have fewer people doing more things, I guess, with AI or whatever.
And so, yeah, I mean, you could argue that's the part of the argument is cut the teams back. So the only way they can still make their milestones is to utilize AI.
Yeah. Right.
I got to tell you, I've been working with some folks these past couple of weeks where I have literally watched them in a day do a 6-week sprint.
Yeah.
And just delivered that much code
because of AI.
Because they're able to use the tools at a level I've never seen before. And just literally as fast as we can write the specifications, they're spitting the code out.
This suggests a belief that this stuff is better / more accurate than it really is. And this is I think today is the problem with AI. Not that it's never going to get there, but just that if you start to see good results and then you drop your defenses and stop challenging it. Yeah. And you just accept what it does. And that's when it's going to bite you in the butt.
Well, and it's absolutely part of the problem is that Unique's a very skilled person. And I've been working with a few of them to keep the tools in line and to get the results that you need.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that particular skilled person is working at a staggering rate. We talked about 20-30% performance benefits with GitHub Copilot a couple of years ago.
Right.
And today it's 100-fold. It's just so stunningly fast.
This falls into that category of I'm just resisting and I can't explain why. Like I literally have no good excuse.
But I'll also say it's a very known problem that they're working on. It's very much a forms over data problem. It's a lot of rote work, and the tools can pull it off. And by the way, these are not necessarily Microsoft-centric tools. These are a variety of tools, but it is possible. And it's all the right operator.
For whatever it's worth, this is also not just Microsoft, right? Google is doing this exact same thing. Apple is talking themselves into doing this thing. I mean, they've been moving kind of slow. Amazon is a little more opaque. It's hard to say, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were also moving down this path. I mean, it's just a hard thing because if you looked at this business and said, look, we're just throwing money away. We've got all these employees and all their benefits and all their whatever it is, and they're not being super efficient. And if we just automated some of this stuff, we could be more successful. And it's like, I could see that, but they are the most successful company on earth. It's just what makes this kind of bizarre. It's very strange.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for example, like Perfect Dark Zero. So instead of canceling the game, do you cut the studio in half and say, you can do this with AI now and you can do it in half the time. So prove me wrong, Yeah. But no, in this case, they just got rid of it. And so there's more going on there that we don't know about, obviously. But it's, I think the big problem here is just the unknowns. It's just, like I keep saying, I like to be able to say, well, I know it sounds off, but this is why, and in this case, it's like, I know it sounds off, and that's the end of that sentence. It sounds off. Like, I just don't, I'm having a hard time understanding. Maybe they're using Chat GPT 5 and it's working great. I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question. I feel for the folks, and I see, at the same, I'm looking through LinkedIn to see the wave of it's me, but I'm also seeing a lot of folks from May saying happy to now be at, and they're moving around.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Didn't they promise when the FTC that the acquisition of Activision wouldn't result in a bunch of layoffs? I think they said that. They didn't. No, they didn't.
The FTC claimed that this was part of the agreement, which it wasn't. And at the time, look, you're integrating a gigantic business that has overlap with your existing business. Obviously, there are going to be
redundancies.
There's going to be redundancies. Like this was, So, at that time, whenever that was, probably a year ago, December, something like that, I was like, so the FTC is telling Microsoft they're not allowed to lay off anybody now. It's like, there's never been a corporate acquisition of this scope, probably period, but there's never been a corporate acquisition like this where there weren't layoffs because of redundancies. There have to be, right? I mean, that's understandable. Like that to me that was like a year and a half ago. Like that was understandable. Now we're at the point where it's like, guys, like it's mostly going great. It seems like I don't understand what's happening here.
Were there people laid off from Blizzard Activision?
Yes.
The King people, right?
Yep. That's what we know about so far. But also, like I said, Raven is part of Activision Blizzard, is part of this. Yep. So we're gonna know more. I mean, even the Phil Spencer email mentions in the days ahead, they're going to learn more internally, and then we're going to learn more externally too, right? So we'll see how it goes. I don't know, but I wouldn't want to be working on Xbox hardware right now personally, but I do think they're the biggest game publisher in the world right now, actually, right? I mean, that part of the business is actually doing great. And so, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a future there. It's just that, it's not the business that Microsoft started, 25 years ago. And it's certainly not the console-centric business that a lot of fans still seem to kind of pine for. But I feel like that dream is over, like that ship sailed. How else could I say that? We've moved past that, I guess.
I guess, by the way, NVIDIA is now the number one market cap. It's a race between Microsoft,
changes
NVIDIA,
every day.
and Apple, any day.
And it goes back and forth. It's
just for completeness,
right?
I think I do remember Microsoft saying that the acquisition of Blizzard would be a vertical acquisition, that they would retain independence, and so they wouldn't have redundancies. But
okay, well, I don't.
I don't remember.
I wrote about this at great length at the time, but I could go back and just look it up.
I think it's often, in fact, almost universally the case that during these trials, companies say, "Oh no, Your Honor, we're not going to lay anybody off," and then as soon as it's over,
Well, and it's also normal, really, not to do that for the first year anyway. While you just
takes a while, you got to figure out,
right?
Yeah, what do we need?
Yeah, right.
Now they're saying, well, Blizzard was going to lay those people off anyway, so it's all part of the plan.
By the way, at that time, what the FTC was complaining about was an elimination of 1,900 jobs, which today we might refer to as the good old days.
Yeah.
So Microsoft structured the Activision Blizzard deal as a vertical acquisition only to meet the needs of antitrust, where if it got rolled back, it would be easier to roll it back, but they didn't actually promise not to lay anyone off. No, you couldn't make that kind of a promise.
No, should you? It would be fiscally.
You couldn't. I mean, you just couldn't.
Yeah, you're a public company. You can't say stuff like that. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
But it's not only gaming, right? There are other parts of the company, but I also think a bunch of that's a hangover from May.
Yeah.
But I'm also hearing it's the beginning of the new fiscal year. This is it.
Hey, it's me, Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this little snippet from Windows Weekly. If you want to see more and want to catch the whole show, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast client or visit our website, twit.tv/WW. And of course, there's links right below me.